welcome back, footy fans, to another episode of Donnie's Disposals. I am your host, Coach Donnie Hess, here back with today another waffle wrap up. And joining me, as always, my waffle expert and the great man at the wafflefootyfacts.com, Mr. Rick Gauchi. Rick, sir, I know it is early in the morning. How are you doing, sir?
Morning, Dotty. Oh, I'm not too bad, mate. Well, a couple of late nights watching some of the Ashes cricket from England, but other than that, I'm all right. I'm set for another week of work. But starting off the week, having a good chat to you about some waffle and waffle women's footy. Looking forward to another good chat with you this morning.
Well, I'll say this: anybody listening to Australians, darn the Pommies, they had to ruin the chances of ending the Ashes series in 3 games. But at least it makes the next test a little bit more interesting for
It
sure.
does.
But that is not why we are here. We are here to talk waffle, and we have men's and women's competition, including the women's finals, is nearing the end. We only have one more women's game left, so let's go through it really, really quickly, sir. Your thoughts on the footy that has been played since the last time we talked. We have seen rounds 10 through 13 in the men's and rounds 15, 16, and the first 2 rounds of finals for the women's. Thoughts on the footy you have seen, because it's been a little bit of everything.
Yeah, it's been a good few weeks of footy. A couple of very one-sided results in the men's competition, with the Eagles continuing their dismal performance, but they do have a bit of light at the end of the tunnel after the last weekend's result, which we'll get to when we look at the round 13 results. But Perth have also had a couple of big losses. East Perth now are on a bit of a run. They've won their last 6 games and are really establishing themselves as a premiership contender for the season. Claremont getting over the line with some continuing their big last quarters and getting over the line in a few close games. Subiaco being a bit inconsistent. Peel have won a few games now on the end, but as we'll see when we start talking later, it's pretty much the top five is done and dusted now with the results over those last 4 rounds of fixtures, which is a bit unfortunate so far out. But I guess the plus side of that, the top five is pretty even, and I hope teams like Swans and South and Perth and obviously West Perth, who are not going to be able to back up their premiership from last year, can get a few wins against some of those top sides and help shape the finals. Over in the women's, the Swans, their run came to an end. A few good wins. They lost the last game of the year to South Fremantle, and then East Fremantle knocked them off in the semis. So it looks like a pretty exciting grand final coming up this week, which we'll have a chat about, I'm sure, a little bit later on. But yeah, the girls' league or the women's league is coming to crescendo this weekend, and the Waffle men's continues into the last, I guess, third of the season. So exciting in both competitions.
Yeah, it'll be really, really interesting. Unfortunately, yeah, looking at the ladder, and unfortunately, I think the five might be set, which is kind of sad this early in the season as we are tracking down
Yeah.
towards the end. But you like a little bit of intrigue at the end of the year of maybe somebody can get in, and unfortunately, it just looks like that won't happen. So let's jump into it. Let's go over the rounds of footy that have happened in the men's. We'll go back to round 10 again, kind of the split rounds. We only have 4 games to talk about for round 10. We start off as Peel Thunder smack Perth 88-69. East Fremantle beat Swans 91-67. I don't know if losing by more than 2 points is any better than losing by several points, unfortunately. Subiaco get a nice win over West Perth 113-58, and East Perth get a nice win over South Fremantle 82-59. Looking at this round, unfortunately, a lot of blowouts, unfortunately. So not really close games to talk about in this particular round of footy.
Yeah, I think the results went as pretty much expected in that round. There was hope that West Perth might be able to knock off Subi, but they were pretty disappointing. Subi were pretty dominant from the first quarter on in that game. East Fremantle were way too strong for Swans. Peel, Perth actually put up a pretty good show against Peel, to only lose by 3 goals. I thought I was probably expecting Peel to win by a bigger margin than they did. But yeah, I think the results in round 10 were pretty much as expected. And East Perth sort of were, I think, their second game into their 6 game streak, or third game into their 6 game streak. So they were starting to really put the foot down after round 10.
And unfortunately, we moved around 10 where the blowouts, what we thought was blowouts last round, got even worse in round 11 as we only have 3 games because of the split round due to some of the buys. as Claremont put a whooping on the West Coast Eagles. Not that this is much of a surprise. 147-56. East Fremantle with an 110-point win over Perth, 146-36. And your Swans with a nice little win over the defending premiers, 72-57. So, I mean, another round of nothing but smashings for the most part.
Yeah, again, probably expected fixtures. Claremont, the only surprise there is they didn't win by more than 100 points, I think. East Perth, it was that beat Perth convincingly. East Perth really, again, showing how strong they are this year with their really powerful midfield. I saw that firsthand on the weekend. Their midfield is extremely strong and it's really going to be hard to stop when it comes to finals. And Swans got a win. Again, I was away, so I missed all 4 wins this year for Swans. Away on a family holiday, and for the 4th time I've been away, we got up and won. So I think I'm a bad luck charm for Swans this year. But that's West Perth. It was champion Aaron Black's 250th game, so I call out to him. Great effort for any modern days player to play WAFL footy for as long as he has and as many games as he has. He's been a very durable player. Got to play one AFL game as a COVID top up a couple of years ago for the Eagles. Deserves every accolade he gets. But unfortunately, he couldn't get his team over the line, or the team couldn't get over the line for him in his 250th. And Swans got a win in that game. But that was the only game really of any competition, I guess, in round 11.
Unfortunately, man, you must feel like a jinx every time you go away, they actually win. So sorry, Rick, I'm not trying to. I was like, I can feel the pain on that one as you stated it. So we'll move over to round 12, and round 12
Yeah.
gave us a little bit of solace. Some really good games of footy happened as this, some nice tight games as Peel Thunder edged South Fremantle 74-62. Claremont with another close but a win over Subi 74-67. And unfortunately, what we saw is the second 200-point performance put on the West Coast Eagles as East Fremantle with a 215-31 win over West Coast. It's like 2 good games, really close. And the last one we don't really want to talk about. So
Yeah, I guess that the 2 really good games there, and the game of the round was obviously Claremont and Subi. Claremont were a little bit different in this game. They usually have been coming back in the last quarters. They'd won 9 out of their 10 last quarters coming into this game. And Subi actually did to Claremont what Claremont have been doing to other teams all year. But fortunately for Claremont, they were able to hang in. A 4-goal-to-1 last quarter for Subi nearly got them over the line. But Claremont hung in there and got that victory by 7 points in the end. Peel, again, just going through a bit of a phase where they're sort of struggling a little bit, but getting the wins. So in the previous week, they'd beaten Perth by 3 goals. This time they beat South by 2 goals. So not really hitting their straps at the moment, the Thunder. And then East Fremantle recorded the 7th highest ever score in WAFL football. Their 2nd ever highest score, their 2nd biggest winning margin. And just a romp for East Fremantle against the Eagles as the Eagles' miserable season continued. So yeah, a couple of good games there, but yeah, one shocker.
Well, we'll move to the last round that has played since the last time we talked, and we have a little bit of everything in this round. Fascinating as East Fremantle beat West Perth 91-50. East Perth give a nice another beating, unfortunately, to your Swans 80-32. And then the good games happened at the end of the round. The last 3 all with crackers, only a 14-point win of Peel over Subiaco. I'm going to skip the next game because I want to leave it for last because it's the one I have to chuckle at. Claremont edging South Fremantle by 4, another 4th quarter comeback. But I'm going to go back to it. A draw. We get a draw. And stop the presses, write the headlines. West Coast have points in the WAFL this year as they get a 98-98 draw with Perth. The 2 bottom teams play to a 98-98 draw. I'm not sure whether to be impressed or to sit here and go, should we expect anything different?
Yeah, that was amazing result. I managed to catch the last probably minute and a half to 2 minutes of that game after the Swans game ended. Jumped in my car on the streamer and on the AFL app and watched the last minute and a half. West Coast had been trailing pretty much most of the game, 5 goals behind at half time. They were 38 points behind in the 3rd quarter. After Perth kicked, I think, the first goal of the 3rd quarter, and it looked like Perth was just going to run away as expected and have another 10 plus goal victory over the Eagles. Eagles found something, kicked 7 goals in the third quarter, which is their highest ever scoring third quarter in their 68 games they've played to date. And with, I think, 10 minutes to go, I heard on the commentary that there was no score, that it was 98-97. The Eagles were in front for the last 10 minutes, the ball going backwards and forwards. And in the last seconds, Christian Carey, Perth forward, took a mark about 45 metres out. Siren went. So it's like every player's dream, kick a goal after the siren to win a game. So I was just about to get in my car and drive off. I thought, no, I've got to watch this. He had a shot from 50, and it went to the right, probably fell a few meters short, but in the marking contest, the ball spilled through hands and went through for a point. And the Eagles, almost a miracle, they got up and got a draw. So an amazing result for them, and I'm very happy for them. You know, they had 2 Eagles players playing, listed players, who are both young kids. The rest of them were all, WAFL Eagles players. Some of them, the one bloke in particular, Jack Eastoe, who's played 24 games before this, never had a win in his career. So his 25th game, he still hasn't had a win, but at least he's had a draw. So a couple, players there that have played more than 20 games without a win. So, I feel really good for those boys. Shame they didn't get a win. They're putting a lot of effort in and trying their hardest, even though they generally haven't been up to it. But yeah, amazing result, and that's Perth's first draw since 2009. And we went through a number of years without a draw, and we've had 2 in each of the last 2 years. Now we've had 1 draw. Interesting result for Perth. I thought they should have won that, so they'd be disappointed. But yeah, both of their seasons are well and truly done and dusted anyhow.
Yeah, unfortunately, but it's just kind of like I kind of had to chuckle. I'm like, man, that was the highest scoring game of the round, and it ended up being a
Yeah,
draw. So it was just interesting to see. Like I said, is all the others you had. I don't know if it was the fact that neither team wanted to play defense or it was just both teams had an incredibly good shooting day. I don't know, but it was 98-98 draw. I just thought it was absolutely like I said, each team gets 2 points. It's the downer of the draw because nobody gets to sing the song, but I'm like, at least West Coast gets some points. But unfortunately, as you said, these are the 2 teams fighting for the wooden spoon, unfortunately. So I think you kind of take the good with the bad, unfortunately. So that's going to do it for the men's games that have played since the last time we talked. I had to go back because I was sitting here going, I'm looking at my script going, wait, that's a lot of rounds for the women and so few for the men. So I had to go. So I had to adjust it. It's round 14 through 16 and then the final. So I'm like, oh, I had to
excuse me.
do math really, really quickly in my head. So if I didn't look like I was paying attention to those on the podcast, I'm sorry. It was like I just panicked in the back of my head as I'm looking at my script. So we'll go back to round 14 of the women's, and it just
Yeah,
kind of stays with everything here. So we had the split round. You had the rivalries in round 13. We go to round 14. See Subiaco blank Peel Thunder 41-0, and Claremont continue their dominance in the WAFL W with a win over Swans 37-16. Neither game close. Subi showing that they still want to make finals at this time period, trying to get in. So, but again, Claremont showing their dominance.
yeah. Claremont ended Swans, I think, 8-game winning streak there with a pretty comprehensive victory, 5-7 to 2-4. And Subi just demolished Peel, 16 scoring shots. Unfortunately, they didn't kick straight, 5-11, and Peel were scoreless. So I think that was a 3rd or 4th scoreless score for the season, if that makes
Mhm.
any sense. So it's a bit disappointing that there are so many one-sided results in the WAFL women's, and hopefully next season some of those lower teams can build up some strength, and we don't see so many lopsided results. But Claremont really showing their class and their strength with a pretty easy win in the end over Swans.
Yeah. So as we were going back and forth, I remember talking with Rick and saying, what did Swans need to do to get into finals? And they needed to win in round 15 over East Fremantle. So we'll go through a 56-0 win by Claremont, again, showing their dominance over West Perth. Subi falling to South Fremantle. So the one thing Swans needed to do to make sure they made the finals happens is South knocks off Subi 36-17. The bottom of the bottom cellar dwellers as Peel beats East Perth 44-26, and Swans pull it off. They're going to make finals, beating East Fremantle 48-34. So that sent us into round 16, knowing that the 4 would be set as Swans, East Fremantle, South Fremantle, and Claremont. guaranteeing themselves spots in the finals. Looking at it, I know you had a smile on your face. Swans make the finals. May not have been the finals appearance that they wanted, but hey, you get one extra game of footy this year.
Yeah, I think the Swans women did a great job there getting into the finals, and this was a big win. Really set them up for a good shot at the finals. Whether they were going to play East Fremantle or South Fremantle in that first semi hadn't been decided, I think, at this stage. So a good win for Swans by a couple of goals there. Other results, obviously, as you mentioned, that South beating Subi meant that the top four was set. So obviously that game was played earlier in the day. The Swans game was played after the men's East Fremantle Swans game at the WACA. So Swans knew that really all they had to do was win that, and they were guaranteed a spot in the finals. So yeah, a good win for Swans over East Fremantle. The other results, Peel, East Perth got their highest score of the season. They're their first season, kicking 4 goals against Peel. So well done to the Royals ladies in that game. And yeah, again, Claremont wiped the slate clean of West Perth there in that game. But yeah, big fixtures in round 15, which set up the final four.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's set up for kind of a lackluster round 16, and even the results kind of played out that way. As Subi with a smashing over West Perth 37-1, Claremont with a smashing over East Perth 41-2, East Fremantle with a smashing over Peel 58-0, and the game of the round sees South Fremantle go into the finals on a high, knocking off Swans by 3, 20-17. So game of the round again. It's like the women kind of took a little bit of the men, the close, tight game that fall just short in a round that really was kind of anticlimactic. We knew the finals, but a nice last game of the season, a 3-point thriller.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, the Swans got girls there almost got up over one against South Fremantle. Again, a bit of inaccurate kicking, 2-5 to 3-2. Um, and I think that gave the Swans girls a bit of hope for the finals with wins over East Fremantle, then a very close game against South Fremantle into the finals. We'll talk about the first semi-final result next, I'm sure, but a good finish to the season for South Fremantle. They kept their top two spot. East Fremantle convincing win over Peel. That meant they jumped Swans into third, and Swans finished fourth with Claremont, well clear on top of the ladder after the qualifying rounds.
Yep. So we get to the first finals, which, as I said, 4 teams make it. So the Claremont South Fremantle game was to make it to the grand final, which sees Claremont beat South Fremantle by 16, 29-13, and basically an elimination final as unfortunately Swan's season comes to an end as South Fremantle, East Fremantle, OMG, cannot make that mistake. My apologies to the Bulldogs fans. The Sharks beat the Swans 46-17. So that would set up the game. That would set up the game for the next round, seeing South Fremantle face East Fremantle to get to the grand final. I know it's disappointing that you lose that game in the elimination final, but how proud of you, Swans make finals, a really good season despite how it ended.
Yeah, and I recall going back to our first review when they were Norton 4. Pretty much gave them no hope. Then they went on and won the next 7 or 8 games. So that was a pretty good effort to come back from that position. So I think they should be pretty proud of themselves for their effort to get to the finals. Probably a disappointing result in that first semi final. Looking at the game, we weren't really in the game. It was 2 goals to nothing at quarter time, 5-1 half time, 7-1 at 3/4 time. LS ones won the last quarter, only kicked 1 goal to nothing. So East Fremantle really, really strong in that game. It was a pretty good team effort from East Fremantle. A lot of players that over 10 possessions, which in the women's league is a pretty good effort. So a bit too strong for Swans. A good season for Swans comes to an end. East Fremantle move on and they move through to the preliminary final against South Fremantle. And as we see that result, they're now into the grand final. So yep, you can only
Perfect.
beat who you can beat. And East Fremantle got up and managed to beat Swans. Claremont went straight through, which I don't think was unexpected. That result.
Yeah, unfortunately, but again, as you said, East Fremantle go on and actually kind of get the upset. I think a lot of people were kind of banking on the South Fremantle Claremont rematch in the grand final, but East Fremantle goes, no, 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 hold my beer as they win 45-22 in the other preliminary final. So you got to give it. The Sharks came in and they played with some zest, and you kind of think My only worry is they have one extra game on their legs against Claremont, but this is a Sharks team that they've played with their backs behind the wall, so you just never know.
Yeah, yeah. And grand finals, we talk about it all the time. Grand finals are a completely different beast. You can be dominant throughout the whole season. East Fremantle last year, we've talked about a few times on this pod, went through undefeated, and Claremont knocked them off in the grand final last year. Claremont this year, although they've had a draw, they've not lost the game. So the pressure is on them. East Fremantle have absolutely nothing to lose here. No one's going to expect the Sharks to get up and win. Claremont, in the history of the WAFL in the men's league, tend to make a lot of grand finals, but they lose a lot of grand finals. So there's pressure on them. The girls, they haven't won a premiership for a couple of years now down at Claremont. Sorry, well, they won last year, of course, but before that, they hadn't won many times. So East Fremantle would really be, hoping to knock Claremont off there. But you know, I'm looking forward to I'll probably catch a bit of this game. I don't watch a lot of the women's footy, but I do follow the results. So I'll probably keep an eye on this game and see if the Sharks can pull up a bit of an upset. But I think Claremont, looking at their fixtures, they've scored 600 points and conceded 170 for the year. So it's going to be a lot of effort for East Fremantle to get up and win against Claremont. Next time we get together, we'll know who wins. But I would imagine Claremont probably, it might be a 5 or 6 goal to 2 or 3 result, I think is how I'm seeing this one. But, I'll be barracking for the underdog. So come on, the Sharks. I think they can pull off an upset. They knock Swans out. So I'm hoping they win now.
Well, we'll cross our fingers for a competitive game at least. Whether who wins or not, I'm not
Yeah,
as worried about it. I just want a competitive final because I think the league
that'll be
deserves that
nice.
a little bit. So again, you never know. It's a one game thing, and as you kind of said, a couple of teams have come in undefeated in the last few years and not come out with a premiership. So we'll definitely be on pins and needles for that one. So we'll jump to the burning questions section. And I think we kind of already addressed this a little bit, but I'll ask the question. There are only 7 rounds left in the men's season. Is the 5 set for the finals, or is there any way West Perth and Swans can find their way in?
Well, the only way they can is mathematically. But I think theoretically and practically, no chance. West Perth have really gone backwards in the last few weeks. They're really struggling. I saw them play against Swans, and they just went in the game. Seemed very flat. They had a good chance. They had the chance last week against East Fremantle. If they had won that, there would have been a 1 game gap between East Fremantle and West Perth, and the finals race would have been on for in earnest. But East Fremantle won by 7 goals and are now 3 games clear of West Perth. So I think West Perth are done, unfortunately. Swans are too far back, and the rest literally no chance. But I was hoping Swans would make a bit of a run. Impressed with their win against West Perth, but against East Perth last week, East Perth were way too strong from the first bounce of the game. It didn't look like Swans had a chance. So I think the top 5 teams are by far the best 5 teams in the competition this year. And the ladder is proving that at the moment. So unfortunately, there's still 6 games to play for each side. 6 games, that means, East Fremantle, Subi or Peel probably are the ones that would be likely to fall out, if any. Have to lose probably 4 of their 6. West Perth will have to win 5 of their 6. I think unfortunately it's pretty much done. So it's just who's going to
Unfortunately.
finish where. The top 5. There's only 2 games between first and fifth, 1 game between second and fifth. So the interest will be where those positions, where the teams finish at the end of the year, I think.
Yeah, I think it'll fluctuate a little bit, but unfortunately, I'll have to agree with you on that one. As much as it stinks because
Mm.
it kind of takes some intrigue out of the last few rounds, but we'll have to go to it. And then I have to say it, the Claremont Tigers continue to give heart palpitations to their fans. So I asked this of you here, Rick. I know this is an easy answering your question about Claremont, but they continue to win in tight games with comebacks or late game heroics. Are they really the premiership favorite? Or should the Tigers faithful be worried come finals time that this team is there to be beaten?
Yeah, well, they're getting over the line in the close games. They've won 5 games by single figures this year, and you compare that to a team like Swans, we talked about plenty of times, have lost 5 games by under 10 points. So the good teams, as they say, win the close games. So, whoever's in front, end of the game, whether you're 1 point or 10 points or 100 points, it doesn't matter when it comes to finals. There's no such thing as percentage. So I think for Claremont, knowing that they can win from anywhere, generally in the last quarter, they've won, I think, 10 of their 12 last quarters pretty convincingly most of the time. Their biggest loss, well, they've only lost a couple of games, by 20 odd points. So I think at this stage, I would say they're still favourite, but the close games, it could turn come finals. They may not get over the line of those close games. Again, the law of averages say you're gonna lose one, and you don't want to be you don't want it to be the grand final or a knockout final where you do lose that close one. So looking at the teams, I've seen all the teams play this year, and I wasn't impressed with East Perth in the first game I saw them, but boy, I was very impressed with them on the weekend. They should have beaten Swans by nearly 80, 90 points, but they couldn't kick straight. Their midfield is super strong. Claremont have got a strong midfield as well, but I think East Perth could match them, if not beat them on the day. I think they're probably the two teams I'd love for East Perth to get in there, because both the East Perth and East Fremantle haven't had a lot of success lately. So, I'd be rooting for East Fremantle, East Perth grand final. East Fremantle haven't won one since 1998, the most successful club in the WAFL. East Perth haven't won one. Yeah, probably going to get a few East Perth supporters offside here, but probably since 1978 as a proper East Perth football club, they won 3 premierships in the 2000s, with the first 2 being alignment teams. That their last one, the third of those hat trick years, it was an East Perth side. So, but they still had a bit of remnants of the alignment there. So it's been a while for both of those clubs. So I'm hoping they play off in the grand final. Subi, I'm not convinced with Subi. I'll see them probably destroy Swans this weekend, so I might change my mind. But Peel, again, they've sort of gone a bit stale with just getting over the line the last few rounds, but they've got, I think, about 8 AFL listed players already qualified for the finals. With the Dockers struggling, I don't think they're going to make the finals. Peel could have really, again, strong core of AFL players. They will be restricted to 12 players. AFL listed players come finals with the rules, so they could still be there. But I think it's a race in 3. I'm calling it at this stage. I think it's between Claremont and the 2 Easts. At this stage, at least with Claremont probably just got their nose in front at this stage. But be interesting last 6 weeks, as I said earlier, that top 5, any of those teams could end up anywhere. So yeah, and they will play each other over the few weeks, so it can be interesting results.
Oh, it'll be fun.
Shape the 5.
We'll definitely be keeping an eye on that for sure. And then we kind of already discussed this, but as we said, we're at the pinnacle of the women's season, and Claremont are going for an undefeated year. East Fremantle trying to be that little engine that could, coming from the elimination final. Can the Sharks do it? Or is this the Tigers premiership? And really the Sharks are just there to make up the numbers?
Yeah, well, I think, as sort of mentioned earlier, I think it's Claremont's to lose. They deserve to win, but it's a grand final. No one is guaranteed to win. So yeah, I think, as I said, Claremont by 2 or 3 goals, I think, will get over the line. I'm hoping East Fremantle can get up with an upset. Always a good upset in grand finals, but I think Claremont will most likely be too strong for this, and cap off a really, really strong 2 years for them in the women's league. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I will.
it's a good game.
I will give my tip on that one and kind of explain that a little bit later. But I'm very interested on that one, because I think how it starts will be interesting to see how it goes for sure. So we jump for the burning questions to the tipping, and I find this fascinating because, as you kind of said, there's some good matchups here in the men's in round 14. A couple of games that I know will most likely not be close. So we will really quickly go through it. West Perth get the team that everybody beats except Perth in the West Coast Eagles. I mean, West Perth should win this one. Do they repeat their smashing that they did earlier in the year, or is this a West Perth team that's kind of taken a step or two back?
Yeah, I think it's probably the latter there. West
He
Coast will take a lot of
disappears.
confidence. Yeah, doing your thing. Yeah,
Pulls his
doing your
David
thing.
Copperfield out
Um,
today.
Yeah, that's it. I think they'll take a lot out of their result against Perth. West Perth have been a bit flat. I think West Perth will win easily, but not by 169 points like they did in round three or round two or three. Um, yeah, so I think West Perth easily in this one. I think the Eagles will start to get some players back over the next couple of weeks from their AFL side, but yeah, I think West Perth easily in that one.
Well, it seems like their AFL side, they get one back and they lose two more. So it's just kind of been the way
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
they're like 10-pin bowling. You just bowl, you hit one and three others fall down. So very
yeah,
interesting. We
yeah.
jump to it. The other unfortunate cellar dweller host is Perth hosts South Fremantle. Do the doggies get a win and kind of maybe spark a comeback, or is this one of those where it's a win, but unfortunately the season's kind of over after the way their season had to start.
Yeah, I think Souths have been a bit disappointing probably the last month of football for them. Probably realising that they're too far behind to get into the finals. They are playing a lot of young kids, so with being a bit out of the chance of the finals, they've been putting through a lot of young kids. The young bloke called Caleb Stevens, who is a son of one of our family friends. He's really pulled his he come up from playing Colts, had a year off last year, and he's really been a shining light, I think, for the Bulldogs. And some of the other young players are coming through. So I think Todd Curley's doing a great thing. They're getting games into the young kids, and it will only go well for their future. Perth should have got that win last week against the Eagles. I think South will get over the line with this one. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's another draw, the way these teams have been playing lately. But I think the doggies will get up and get a win, and let's hope they do for their players.
Ah, that'd be cruel if that did happen. So, and then what has to be the next two games have to be the two games of the round because we see the cream of the crop. But this one is fascinating. I cannot wait to hear what you think of this one. Leaderville Oval, East Perth v Claremont. Can the Royals get a big scalp win here with a few rounds to go and a chance to move up and really test this Claremont Tigers team?
Mm. Yeah, looking forward to this game because, as I said, I've been really impressed with East Perth and their six-game winning streak. Behind them, they're going to be really keen to knock off Claremont. And I think if they do, we'll hit the top of the ladder. And it's been a while since East Perth have been on the top of the ladder. So a massive game here. There's two big games this round, and this is where that top five. The interest is because they start to play each other, and when there's only a game or two difference between the whole top five, these are what they call 8 point games. So, a
Mhm.
win for East Perth will be massive. A win for Claremont will be massive for them because that will give them a one, potentially 2 game break over whoever's going to be second. And the top five, that first place at the end of the season is massive because you only need to win 1 game to get into the grand final. So, massive game. I'm going to go for East Perth. They're sort of my second team. I played one little league game for them many, many, many years ago. So I think East Perth. I'm sort of hoping East Perth get up over Claremont, but I couldn't call that one. I think it's going to be a kick or two in that in that game. Really looking forward to that one.
Yeah, I that'll be fascinating. It's the home cooking is the home cooking factor. Can East Perth really benefit from being at home? I cannot wait for that. It'll definitely be interesting no matter who gets the win there. And then the
Mm.
other game of the round, as we said, I mean, the top four going at each other as East Fremantle.
Mantle.
OMG. Why do
Yep.
I keep making that mistake? One of these days I'm going to have it. East Fremantle, the Sharks take on Peel Thunder as 3v4 take on each other at Geraldton in WA. Who do
Yep.
you like in this one?
Yeah, another cracker. This one's going to be, as I mentioned a couple of times, Peel have been a little bit off the ball, but getting wins. And again, you can only just win. I think 3 games in a row, winning by around 2 or 3 goals. So um, interesting again with the Docker selections. Who goes up? They may make a few changes this week up in the AFL level with their disappointing result against Claremont. So there might be a bit of a shuffle of players there. Whether that's a distraction, whether it's a good thing for Peel, I'm not sure. Up at Geraldton, Isha Manel's country zone. Um, they've played 9 games previously there, Isha Manel, but they've won 5 and lost 4, so they're not guaranteed a win up there.
Mhm.
But I think Isha Manel probably been a bit more uh, probably inconsistent of the two teams, but I think each man will probably get up and win that one. But again, a cracker of a game. From the league's perspective, we want to, I'd say, to keep the top five interesting, you'd want East Perth to win. If Claremont win and say East Fremantle will defeat Peel, then Claremont will be 2 games clear on top of the ladder. So I think East Fremantle just in this one, but again, another cracker. They've historically played very close games over the last few years, these two teams. So yeah, another interesting game, that one.
I sure hope so. I really, really do. And last but not least is Subiaco, since they don't get to play at Forces, they get to face Swans here. Can your Swans pull an upset and try to crawl back into the finals chances with against Subi?
Well, I think they played like they played against West Perth. Yes, they played against. If they play like they played last week against East Perth, I can't see this getting within 5 or 6 goals of Subi. So, got a couple. Swans have got a couple of players coming back from injuries. A couple of big blokes, Will Collins and Jesse Glass McCasker, both played reserves last week after a couple of bouts of concussion. Get them into the side, which will be really key against Subiac. Have got probably the best tall forwards. Ben Sokol, perennial leading goal kicker. Ryan Borchett, Jack Mayo, some really big, tall, strong players. So if we can get those boys back in, it might be a bit of a chance for Swans. I think if we had beaten East Perth last week or put up a better show, I think would have given us a bit of a chance. But I think Subi will probably be too strong for Swans, even though it's at Bassendean Oval. I think the only way Swans will win this probably is if I jump on a plane and travel somewhere and don't go.
Like, honey, I'm going out of town for the weekend. Be back.
Hope it's a
Unfortunately,
good game at least. Anyway, yeah,
unfortunately, and like I said, you at least you can have a chuckle about it there's no hard feelings there. So, and then we'll do it. We'll tip it. I know you've kind of already said who you've got in this, so I will do my tip for the women's grand final as East Fremantle play Claremont. Unfortunately, the WAFL app does not say what time or what place yet. I have not seen it. Have you seen anything on what time? What
yeah.
time?
So it'll be played at Lathlane Park or Mineral Resources Stadium before the West Perth and West Coast game. So I believe it's an early start around 11:30. I think from last I saw it. You're right; it doesn't actually say it in the Waffle website. I'm just
Yeah, neither
refreshing
is
that
the
at the
app.
moment to see if they've updated it. Um,
Well,
let's just have a
the
quick
app.
busy on the
I'll say
website.
this: as much as I love the app because it keeps me updated, sometimes it can be a little bit of a pain because with the women's season, I remember the it had it up to round 13, and then it didn't have anything after until like the week of, and then like everything else kind of came in. So I don't know how
Yeah,
quickly they update the app. So like I said, I know it's Claremont versus East Fremantle. So here's my take on this. This is one of those, if I'm Claremont, you have to get off to a good start because if you let East Fremantle get off to a good start because they've been playing footy, they're not rusty. They haven't had a week off. Claremont's got to kind of take the initial rush. East Fremantle's going to be hopped up. They're super excited. They got the upset. They got to the grand final. If Claremont can handle the storm of East Fremantle at the start, come the fourth quarter, those legs are going to be heavy. They have an extra game on them. Claremont's talent will probably raise over. This is one of those. The first quarter is going to tell me if East Fremantle can put up a score, get 2, 3, maybe even 4 goals in the first quarter on Claremont, it could be a long day. If Claremont can keep it to 1 goal or less, or even take the lead in that first quarter, it's going to be curtains, unfortunately, because I think East Fremantle, as the quarters advance, it's going to get tougher because they have one more game on their legs, and this Claremont team is super, super talented. So I look at it, like this: Claremont has to survive the storm. East Fremantle has to come on like a house on fire because if they don't, Claremont is the better team. But if you can catch them early and get them on the back foot and maybe put a little doubt in the back of their minds, then there's a possibility. And Claremont wins it, but
yep,
if East Fremantle can start well, I think it's a closer game than some of these that have been. Claremont's on a mission. They want to get the undefeated season. You know they're going to play it. But again, East Fremantle, if they feed off the momentum of a couple of games where they came in as underdogs, it's definitely an absolutely ripe situation for an upset in this grand final. I'll tip Claremont, but East Fremantle, I think, is in this until the fourth quarter. So again, fantastic, fantastic footy for this particular upcoming round. I can't wait for it. I probably am gonna have to watch the grand final on replay because if I think right, it's probably gonna be like midnight or 1 a.m. my time.
Yeah, it's
It
two
gets
two 2:45. It's 2:45 our time.
yeah. So
So I'm
which
not sure what's like 3 o'clock
if I
in the morning or
remember
something, is it?
correctly, yeah, which would probably mean it's like 1:45 a.m. So darn it.
Right.
So it's the only
Okay.
bet, but
Yep.
I will get up and watch this game for sure. It'll be fascinating. But Rick, as always, another fantastic chat again. I love keeping track of the waffle. It's been fantastic for you. And I know since the last time we talked, I had the chance to sit down with Brandon Ursig from Swan Districts. Thank you so much for setting that up. I truly, truly appreciate it. He was
Pleasure.
fantastic conversation, and it was great to finally get a waffle player on the podcast.
Yeah, it was awesome. I'm glad Brandon did that for you. It was really good. And if there's any other waffle players out there listening to this podcast, or anyone who knows any, yeah, please get them to get in touch with Donnie or myself. And we'd love to hear from more footballers, men's and women's footballers, past or present, whatever it may be. It'd be great to help out Donnie. He's a great man over there in America, and to have the interest in the state leagues is amazing. So keep up your good work, Donnie, and yeah, let's hope we can get some more footballers on the pod for you, and you can have a bit more of a chat. It was a great listen with Brandon. I learned a few things about him along the way, which was great to hear. And yeah, it's awesome. I had to clear him up on the nickname of one of the players, but yeah, I think he just had a brain fade in that case. But no, that was awesome. So yep, thanks, Donny, and we'll chat again in a few weeks. We'll know who wins the women's final, and then we'll be getting closer to the men's final and that top five taking shape in the men's. So yeah, looking forward to seeing you in another 3 or 4 weeks.
Definitely. The pressure when the record button comes on, sometimes you have a little brain fade. It happens. Trust me. I've buggered so many things up when this thing is turned on. Sometimes I can't even tell you, but that's the fun part about doing the podcast. Absolutely love it. I agree. Thank you so much. If there are any WAF Waffle and Waffle W players that are seeing this, I would love to have a chat with you. I'd love to find out what is your journey in footy because it's something I love listening to. It's always a passion of mine. So that's going to do it, ladies and gentlemen, for the episode. Another episode of Waffle Wrap Up has finished. Again, keep an eye out. More footy coverage coming, some interviews, including a waffle connected commentator that I'm hoping to get on very, very soon. So keep an eye on that. And that'll do it for another episode of Donnie's Disposal.